Hey, stick around. We have a great interview coming up with Doug Pinnick from King's X. He's got stories of hanging out with Angus Young and Brian Johnson of AC/DC, hanging out with Motley Crue. He talks about the old days with King's X, the new record, and so much more. You're going to love this. Don't go anywhere. Please welcome Doug Pinnick to the Chuck Shoot Podcast. How you doing, Doug?
Hey.
Good. Well, hey, I just wanted to first say that I just saw that you posted today would have been your mom's birthday. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's talk about that because I think you were raised by, if I know the story right, you were raised by your was it your great-grandmother or your grandmother?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, my great-grandmother.
Great-grandmother. She was the devout religious woman for like the first 14 years of your life you spent with her.
Right.
And I think you did this right because she was kind of, if I'm guessing this right, if she was devout religious, she was more strict. And that, I think kids kind of need that. And then when you're 14, now you get a little more freedom. You go live with your mom. So talk about the influence of both of them on your life.
Yeah, my mom she let me do whatever I wanted to. And I was always a good kid anyway. I never got in trouble. I never ran around with the bad kids or did drugs or anything like that. In fact, back then, we didn't even know what weed was. You know, I remember my mom's boyfriend used to smoke it back in the 50s, but that's all I remember. I don't even remember how it smelled. And I remember my mom didn't like it, but she let him do it. And that's about it. And then later on, me and her boyfriend started smoking together and I got busted when I was 21. And then we stopped smoking. She got mad at him. She blamed him for it. But yeah, my great grandmother was so strict that, she wouldn't let me go to my neighbor's house and play with him because she had heard his uncle had been in prison. I mean, it was like you were just perfect and everyone else, if anybody had any sin in their family, you had to be away from it. But I think she raised the whole family like that too. And she raised my mom like that, which is probably why, I ended up being raised by my great grandma because they actually took me from my mother when I was 3 and they kicked her out. And so that was that's a lot of history there. But when I finally got to move in with her when I was 14, I remember that the music was what I loved the most because I could listen to anything I wanted to. My great grandmother would only let me listen to gospel music. And so when I went to my uncles or aunts or cousins or school or wherever I went and someone was playing a different type of music, I drank it up. I sucked it up like it was, it was a precious commodity for me because I didn't have a radio to turn and hear the Beatles every 5 minutes. I only remembered what I heard at my cousin's house when they'd bring home the B.B. King record, or my aunt and uncle's house who would bring back the jazz records like Jimmy Smith and Wes Montgomery and Miles Davis. And then I'd go to my other cousin's house. We had teenagers and they'd be playing Chuck Berry and Little Richard all the time. So, and then when I'd go to school, there was show music and I was singing in the choir as a kid and just pop music, Frank Sinatra and all that stuff, even down to Johnny Mathis, So it was all this music around me that I was not allowed to listen to unless I left the house and didn't tell my grandma. So I think it meant more to me, maybe, because it was something that I had to memorize the songs before I got home to remember exactly what went on, because I might never see it or hear the song again.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting. You mentioned the Beatles, and I thought this was really interesting because I think a lot of people equate a lot of your music with the Beatles because it's very melodic like the Beatles. But I heard you say that you were not a Beatles fan. You thought the Beatles were just a bunch of white boys trying to sound black.
Yeah, that's almost... Most people in the Black community felt that,
Really?
Yeah, because they were just playing songs that we had already been writing, and it's true. They wanted to sound like, the rock and roll in America, Chuck Berry and Little Richard. I mean, think about it. Paul McCartney, when he goes, woo, that's Little Richard. He tells you that, So for me at the time, I had already listened to all those bands that the Beatles were listening to. So when they came out, it didn't bring it to a full circle for me because I was a black kid. It brought it to a full circle for all the white kids. Mm-hmm. It was a new music that they could identify with. And I saw that. I remember that I never bought a Beatle record. And I've never sat down and really played a Beatles song, but I know them all. Why is that? Because the Beatles were everywhere. You just knew their songs, and there was great things that they put in their music. I mean, the harmonies and the just the innovations that they did. I took those and put them into what I do, and with Little Richard and all those other people and Led Zeppelin and everybody else too. And so you'll hear a lot of Beatle influence in what I do. Ty and Jerry even said that I make up Beatle harmonies, but they just made sense to me. For Ty and Jerry, on the other hand, they are complete Beatle fans. Beatles are number
Oh.
one to both of them. So the
Huh.
marriage between the three of us, I think that Beatle thing just had to come out. It's just no
Yeah.
way
Well,
it
so do
couldn't.
you feel like the later Beatles, though, that because I hear what you're saying, especially with the early Beatles. I
Hmm.
mean, they sound very much like the Chuck Berrys and stuff, but then they kind of evolved into this with the Sgt. Peppers and all that stuff. I feel like it was very different, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was different, but the songs, I hope I can say this without getting, hated on, but their songs to me were goofy and poppy. They were too pretty. And some of Mother McCain, it was like, I listened to that shit and when I listened to vaudeville in grade school, and I just didn't see the coolness of it. I still don't. When I put a Beatle record on, just try to listen to it. These songs pop up and I go, these are just, to me, I didn't relate to them. They're traditional, maybe English songs or, whatever you want to come up with. And they're great songs. Don't get me wrong. Word wise, progression wise. I mean, Paul McCartney knew how to put them little pieces together and make a real good ditty. Don't get me wrong. I think it was just, there was the soul that I'm used to in Black music was something that the white community hadn't really learned yet. Because soul music and singing like Aretha Franklin, that's not something that we're born with. You learn it.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you got so many white people now that can outsing Black people because it took a few generations, And so that's what was the Beatles for me is if Paul McCartney had a little bit more soul, I would have listened to him. And he would get there close, but I would go, no, he ain't there yet. When he went, oh, darling, please, I will never do you no harm. I'm going, okay. But then it was like, that was it. I'm going, come on, give me some more. And it was back to, the soft stuff. So, I'm a really super picky musician to a fault. It's like, God, I hate everything unless it gives me goosebumps. And if it gives me goosebumps, I worship it,
Okay.
and there's no in betweens for me.
That's what
And a
makes
lot of
music so
times,
great, though. Is it like, I mean,
yeah,
there's some
it
people
does.
that say the Beatles are the best band ever made, and you say you don't
Right.
like them. I love that. I love the different
Yeah.
opinions. So, what was the band when you first started listening to rock that really blew you away? That you said, "Wow, this is it. This is what was your
Uh,
Beatles?"
I was going to college. This is 1970, 69 or 70. And a friend of mine who used to pick me up, he used to drive all across town to pick me up because, being in the 60s, Black people were treated a little bit differently, and I had no way to get to the college. And this white boy, would come pick me up and take me to school. And he went to school also. And one day he came by with this record by Led Zeppelin, Zeppelin 2, and he said, "Doug,
Mm.
check this out." And I brought it in the house and I put it on. I don't know what side I put on first, but all I know is I heard dun, 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 dun. And when it kicked in, the first thing I thought about was that reminds me of Booker T and the MGs. That's what I like about Booker T. The Steve Cropper and Donald Duck would play the same riff together. And that's the first thing I heard. And then Robert Plant started singing, and I'm going, I'm digging this. And from that point on, I just like gravitated. They were like the Beatles to me
Mm.
because they experimented and went places that were into the dark places, the groove places, the angry places that the Beatles didn't take me. I wasn't crazy about Robert Plant's voice until later on in life.
Hmm.
I just didn't feel like he had enough soul either. Paul Rogers was the guy that came along. He's the first white guy that I ever went, okay, this guy went to the same school I went to, you know, and I know exactly where he got that shit from, and I hate him because he's doing it better than I do, you know. And Paul Rogers, I loved him because he gave me hope that I'm going, okay, the white boys are getting it, you know. And then, you know, the early '70s came along, and you had Ian Gillan from Deep Purple, and oh, you could just go down the list of so many singers in rock music, even Ozzy. You know, think about the first couple records. He was
Mm,
singing straight up black blues vocally, you know.
yeah.
And so it started, that trend started happening, which was really cool. And that was my generation. So I fit right in, you know. I get up and sing along with it, you know,
Yeah.
and it
Well,
was
and I,
cool. Even Kansas, you know, Steve Walsh. I mean, think about the soul in his voice. But that was the first generation to me that the white boys started getting my attention.
yeah. Well, so, and I love that you talk about your college. And I heard you say in another interview that you went to college and you took this music theory class. And the most
Yeah,
important lesson you learned from this whole class, and then this was the end of college for you, was just that the rules are meant to be broken for music,
right.
and that's all you needed to know. And so then you went out and that gave you freedom to experiment and with different sounds
That's
and
all I
things.
try to do is break rules now. I mean, to me, it's like why I like to break. I try to break rules because, um, not only I can, but I feel that people don't do that, and you know, I just want to forge that thought. You know, when you sit down and write a song, instead of going to where someone would normally go to in a key change, go to somewhere that no one would imagine you going to and make it work, you know,
Right,
and
because
that's
when I don't know musical tech, I don't know how to describe your music to people, but it sounds good to me. Like it doesn't sound off key or anything weird like that. Like it sounds, like I said earlier, melodic and it has those hooks, but somehow it does sound like a little bit different, but still like I said, in key and all those things.
yeah, that's the whole point. I think like, you know, I take music and bands, the sound of them is like when I'm talking to a person. You know, when if your friend says something to you across the room or they call you, you know that voice. It's
Mm-hmm.
their unique voice and they've learned to develop it as their own. That's how I believe songwriting and bands should be. They have a voice, and all each member, if he's allowed to speak his voice as all members speak together, magic can happen greater than the individual himself. Like Led Zeppelin, for instance, that's what I loved about them. Is like all of them just there was this thing that they created that you just went, wow, oh my God. It's just like how did they all get on the same page? You know, and that in those feelings that I want to emulate with the music that I write and with King's X or whoever I'm playing with.
Yeah, and I mean, that's exactly what you did. And with your guitarist Ty and your drummer Jerry, you guys came together and made this amazing music. I mean, I think like one of the best examples of, and I don't know if you still like this song, but for me, Over My Head, like that's just such a masterpiece. And it's like, who came up with that riff? Did you come up with the riff or did Ty come up with the guitar riff?
I wrote that song about in 1986. A friend of mine loaned me his his 4-track, and he had a Mattel drum machine where you beat it, and I went boom, boom, and I recorded that, and then the riff, I just played the riff on guitar, and then I thought to myself, well, I don't want to play my bass with the same thing, and so I made a different bass line up with it. Usually I don't do that, and this time I did it, and and then I remember Lenny Kravitz, you know, "Let Love Rule." I think that I don't know if that had come out yet, but I remember there was something about that song that made me think about a chorus that doesn't go up, goes down. Because remember on "Let Love Rule," when he got to the chorus, he builds you up and he goes, "Let love rule," and it's like it didn't push, it brought it back down, and it was like so different than any other song I ever heard. Because you know you have to lift it and lift it and lift it, and then you kill it with the chorus, then you bring it back down. He did the opposite. So I thought I would do that on Over My Head. After I wrote the song, all the way through, I mean, I went the whole progression of this song, the church thing at the end, and the whole thing. I made my little demo of it, and I hid it because I thought it sucked. And when we were doing Gretchen, I think it was, Sam said, "Okay, this is your sophomore record. I want to hear everything you guys have ever written because this is important. We cannot have the sophomore slump because we had such good response on the first album." And so we pulled out every song. And I remember I was playing my little tape of demos, and I got to Over My Head, and it started out, dun, 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 and I stopped it. I got up and I started to fast forward it. And I said, "That song sucks. Don't even worry about it." And they said, "No, we want to hear it." And I ran it back and played it for them, and they all loved it. And that's why we did it. And to this day, I don't get it, but I'm glad. I don't hate the song. Don't get me wrong. I don't
Yeah.
hate the song at all. I just didn't understand the appeal because everything I write, I want people to like the song. And when I wrote that song, I just kind of didn't care. And that's what my problem was. I thought, oh, this people ain't gonna care about this song because I didn't feel like I cared about it, and I put it away. And now to this day, I'm tired of singing it. Uh, oh, yeah. I mean, I think we've done that song since it was put on Gretchen to this date. I mean, it's always been in the set. I don't know if there's a set that we haven't done without it. Um, we keep reinventing it, and that'll probably be what happens this time. It's time to reinvent it. I'm tired of doing the sermon. I've been doing this sermon for 20 years, and after a while, you just go, I just don't feel like spewing out what I think. Let's just have a good time, So I want to take that song especially and turn it into something else as a celebration because people seem to feel celebration in that song. So
Oh
yeah.
yeah, it's like I said, it's a masterpiece. Well, that whole album, I mean, it was Kerrang. I didn't know this. Kerrang had, I think, actually your first two albums. Kerrang gave you Album of the Year. Is that right?
Oh yeah, yeah. Crank put us on the front cover of their magazine before our record came out. Something that I don't know. As far as they've told me, they've never seen a magazine do. Because you don't
Wow.
put a unknown band on front of cover of your magazine when it's a major magazine because
Yeah.
you want to sell. But as a result of it, it went number one in England immediately. I mean, kids went out crazy and bought it because you just got to tell them this is the greatest thing, and they go, okay, and their minds are open, and they say, okay, let's go check it out, and they all loved it. It was crazy. When we went over the first time we played the marquee, and I thought, nobody's going to show up because we had already toured the U.S. and nobody was coming. First record, so that's the way it always is. And I was a bit nervous, and I remember we walked on stage, and it was real quiet, and the music was going on. And I remember our sound tech, our sound man said, "Ladies and gentlemen, King's X," and we hit the first note, King, and the lights went up, and the place was packed, and the kids were jumping and singing, and we had never experienced that in our careers ever, So that's why I always say London is my favorite place to play because that was the first place that said, "Hey, we like you guys. It's okay. Let's go do this." They gave us the okay.
Yeah. Does that help you getting those accolades? Because I just remember as a kid in the 90s, every time I'd read an interview, they would say, like, what bands are you listening to? Who are you influenced by? And your band, King's X, was almost always one of it was the most mentioned band in interviews that the other bands loved. I know, like Faith No More's Jim Martin, he loved that Gretchen in
Yeah.
Nebraska, and like so many. You're friends with a lot of these guys too. Like
Yeah. Hmm.
that has to help you, right? But
It really didn't the way you would think it would, because usually when another person in the band, especially if they're really famous or real visible, and mention a band that they like, seems like people would go out and check them out. But it seems that they didn't really do it that much. I know a few people told me when Gene Simmons said that we leave all the rest of the bands in the dust, they went and checked us out. And lately, I've been running into people who have said it because of somebody had mentioned King's X, they went to check it out. So now I'm seeing that, yeah, it must have been going on. Nobody told me, but we never really translated that into record sales. We became the critics' choice, which was really good. We've we're still here, which is really cool, and we're still respected with amongst our peers. You know what I'm saying? So we're happy with that. But when it comes to having that limo and going out with the tractor trailers and playing out arenas. That's we're far from that. We can barely fill up a little club. But when we do go out, the people that come see us, the places are packed, and the people have they're just the glow. There's a glow, and there's a life, and there's a love there, and it's enough to keep us going, and it's enough to pay the bills. And what else could you ask for?
Yeah, well, the respect, because I think I see this with other entertainment facets too, like with comedians. I know there's a lot of, because I watch a lot of stand up comedy, and there's some comedians that they kill me, they make me die, because I watch so much comedy that the average comedian isn't funny to me. I think it might be the same with music. Like if you just listen to a little bit of music, you want something really poppy and really simple, whereas your music is more complex. So if people listen to a lot of music, and they go, okay, same old, and then they come on King's X and they go, whoa, what the hell is this? Like this is different. This is blowing me away. And I think maybe that's why you didn't achieve that mainstream success.
Yeah, people used to say that, but my argument always has been with that is, what about Yes and what about Rush? What about Led Zeppelin? I mean, I listen to Led Zeppelin, and they are we rival them in progression because they're our heroes. I mean, all the crazy stuff we do, Led Zeppelin already did, and they sold millions. I know Robert Plant, talked about sex a lot, and that's that's a good thing. If I was talking about relationships in a real primal manner, we might have sold a lot more records, because people want to relate to lyrics and sex, singing about sex. It seems like that's something that we can all relate to in some way, and it's all about the masses, and it's not that the masses should be applauded as it's great because the masses like it either. I have to look at it in so many different angles just to say I'm making art, and it is what it is, and we take it as for what it is rather than equating it or labeling it or putting a price on it. Even though I'm in the midst of all that.
Yeah. Do you think part of it too was maybe timing, because you guys kind of came up in the late 80s, but that was not really, you would have been better served actually. I talk a lot of the 80s bands, and it's like, if they'd come out a couple of years earlier, but for you guys, it's almost like if you had come out a couple years later, because I think that would have served you.
Well, but the sad thing about it is what would have been going on a couple of years later, because when we dropped D-Tune, that's when the world dropped D'd. So if we hadn't come along, there wouldn't have been a Drop D band that was champion that. Well, Soundgarden played a couple songs in Drop D also, so I can't take that. I have to take that back. But I know that a lot of people that listen to King's X, they responded to the way we approach songs before there was a grunge. And then grunge came along and everything was drop D-tuned, and Neil Young drop D-tuned. And so they said Neil Young invented grunge. And so you got this big swirl of a new sound. We were a pioneer of it, but what about like Jane's Addiction and Red Hot Chili Peppers and Faith No More? They were in the 80s, late 80s also, but they didn't come out with their hair sticking up all over them, because we kind of look like a glam rock band. And because of the hair, they called us, and then people are saying, oh, they're an 80s band. We've always been called that. And I go, no, we weren't. We weren't trying to be an 80s band. In fact, even our hair, I wasn't trying to make it like a glam band. I wanted to look like those new wave bands in England where they just matted their hair together. It was just sticking everywhere. And I used to tease Jerry's hair to make it look like the Alarm. I thought that was just a badass look. It's just your hair is just all fucked up. So we tried that, but you try things and it doesn't catch on. The Hendrix jackets, Sam Taylor's idea. He had us go to this place and we bought all these jackets and they were cool looking, and it was like a Sgt. Pepper kind of vibe. And, we love the Beatles. And so we had this thing that Sam was trying to create with us, this 3-piece band from Texas that there was no real front man like ZZ Top, and that all three of us are like this mystery, and they're that other band from Texas. And he was trying to mold us into this image. we resisted in so many ways too, because that's the way we are. We've always been that way. We won't go along with it just because you want it. You want us to do it. No, you can't control me. As a musician, I have that problem too. You have to really convince me that something's going to work. But I'm babbling, I know. But anyway, so
no, but Sam Taylor.
But all that stuff happened,
yeah.
And so it just didn't catch. That's why I always say it's like if Tide makes Coke that's clear and they put it on the shelf and it's the best tasting Coke in the world and nobody buys it, you're gonna find it in a mom pop store.
Yeah, but okay, so Sam Taylor, you mentioned him. That brought up some questions about Sam Taylor because he had such an influence. He's been called the fourth member and stuff. But the first thing I think he did, one of the first things, is that he changed your name. So do you know where he got that name? Because I was just in El Paso, Texas, and there's a bar called King's X, and I go, wait, is this where they got the name, or is this just a coincidence?
King's X is a word that people use. Like if you're in a room and everybody's making a lot of noise and somebody gives that whistle and everybody shuts up, or somebody goes, attention, or hey, and everybody quiets down. That's all it means. King's X.
Yeah, okay.
If you're in a crowd in Texas and it's chaos or whatever, someone says, King's X, King's X, King's X, and everybody stops. You cross your fingers, and that's what we were told. I never seen anybody use it except for in Fandango in the movie. The guy used it in one sentence when he was flying in through Texas with Judd Nelson and Kevin Costner and all those people in the movie. Okay. That's the only time I heard it. So Sam looked like that for some. Oh, and also Sam's brother's band was called that in the early 60s.
Oh, okay.
And Sam liked that name a lot. And we were called Sneak Preview, which we hated. And we knew that, we were originally called The Edge.
That's kind of a cool name.
I came up with the name before there was a U2. And I says, hey guys, let's call ourselves The Edge. And everybody went, okay, because we had just formed and nobody was thinking about it just seemed like we didn't argue about a name. I just said we're called The Edge, and everyone went, okay. But then when we found there was a band called The Edge that had a record out about 3 years in, we decided to change our name. And that's when we couldn't think of a name. How do you think of a name after you've been, a band? It's just, that's your name. And so we came up with so many different names and couldn't come up with anything that we liked. And we started laughing and making up stupid names to the point where it got so crazy. We knew we weren't going to have a name. So somebody said, let's just call ourselves Sneak Preview. We had that on the list and we went, okay. And we just kind of got tired of debating and laughing, and that's where we left it. And Ty and Jerry love to tell the story, and I do too. When we played in the club and made the announcement that we had changed our name, and also one of our guitar players had left, so we were a three-piece band. And we decided to keep going as a three-piece. And so our first debut show at this club that we had always been playing, we said, we have a new name, and Jerry did a drum roll. And we said, we're called Sneak Preview. And you could hear a pin drop in the club. And there was a whole lot of people in there. And we all looked at each other and went, guess we made a mistake there. And Jerry, one of Jerry's best friends came up to him later and said, man, I feel so sorry for you. And so we knew that it was a horrible name. So Sam knew that. And so that's how we changed the name. Make a long story short.
Yeah. So you like that part, but there was one thing I think I heard you say that you weren't a fan of Sam's production on the first couple records. You had actually wanted to get Brendan O'Brien before anyone knew who he was. Where did you hear Brendan O'Brien produce? What did you hear?
It wasn't Brendan. It was, that's kind of, I love how stories get twisted around.
Oh, I probably just misheard it. It's my fault. Yeah.
No, but what I love is when people tell me stories they hear back, I only go, keep going with that one, because some of these stories are really great that aren't true. But anyway, when we were making the first album and we were doing it in the studio that ZZ Top, a couple guys, what was it? It's the 9th Street Elevators or whatever it's called, a band that Billy Gibbons was in.
Oh, okay.
They recorded their album at this studio, and Steve Ames was the engineer, and Sam and him were really good friends. And Sam worked with ZZ Top for a long, long time. And him and Bill Ham are first cousins. So Sam wanted to keep it in the family. So he put us into the studio that they had already, he brought these people in that he had already worked with or were considered kind of legendary pioneers. And so he got us in the studio. And so that was what was going on. But when you're in the studio, I was the first time I was really ever into a real studio. And I just was going along with it. And I remember I went to the store one day and bought this CD called Masters of Reality. It was the first album. And I put it on, and the sound was, I mean, the kick drum was fat, the bass was in your face, and the cymbals were, tss, and everything was just like I wanted to hear a band in a room. And I remember I brought the CD back and said, Sam, check this out. And it was produced by Rick Rubin, one of his first records. And Brendan O'Brien was the engineer.
Engineer, okay.
Yes. And so there's this sound, and I didn't know anything about who these people were either. It was just this record on Def Jam Records that, or Def America, that was like maybe the second record that came out on that label, and it wasn't rap. So it was this new thing because I was always looking for something new. And when I heard that, I brought it in. I said, man, this is what we need to have, we should sound like. And I was immediately dismissed. And I put the record away, and the first record, how it sounds compared to what it could have sounded like, yes, I will argue till the day I die that it would have sounded different and might have made a big difference. You know, there was the angst and the originality of the songs on the first album. If they had the kick and the power that Brendan and Rick Rubin could have put into them, it would have been a Dogman record, our first album out.
So
it would have been, it would have sounded like that.
Would you have wanted Rick Rubin and Brendan O'Brien as a team to produce this?
Well, I didn't know anything about producers.
You just knew this sounded good and I want this sound.
Exactly, okay. Because Sam Taylor was producing us and he was our manager and he controlled everything. And in that situation, it was our first album, and you know, you look down the line a little bit and look back, and you realize that Sam never would have allowed anyone else to come into the picture at that time. You know, we were his exclusive band, and he was hell bent on making us the next Beatles. And you know, he wasn't open for anybody to come in to try to manipulate us in any way.
Okay,
and we saw that from the beginning.
Yeah. Well, but he did do some good things for the band too. Now, is he the one that he must?
Oh, don't get me wrong. I mean, those 4 records. In fact, I pulled one out a couple of days ago because I've been trying to rediscover King's X and actually appreciate it. And I was listening to some stuff going, man, you know, Sam had some great production methods, and those records have things going on in them that I'm still finding out, hearing that I didn't realize was going on. And, you know, violins and cellos and things that were going on underneath that you barely can hear. And, just all the things. And Sam said that he wanted us to make records that, you know, 20, 30 years from now, you can still put it on and hear something that you never heard before. And in the time we took to make those records, it was painstaking. I hated it all, but all the work we put in it was worthwhile at the end of the day. And we have never, I don't think, made a record of that kind of depth when it comes to layering and putting stuff in. We haven't done that since our new album that's coming out. I mean, the new King's X's, we went back to went back to square one and built all the songs up and just layered things. And just I play the new King's X, and I still hear things that I didn't realize was in there, and it's not even out yet. So
who's producing that one?
His name is Michael Parnin.
Okay.
He produced my Jimi Hendrix tribute record and my Strumps 'Em Up album. But Michael's worked with just about everybody that you can imagine. There was a place out here in LA that every major band just about came through and made records, and he was an engineer there. And so he learned from the best. And I just love his work ethics. He's an analog guy. He loves everything analog. So there's nothing digital on this record except for Pro Tools. everything, effects, mix, everything is all analog, and it's back to the pure thing, and the records are going to be on 45 speed, so it's going to be a double record with 3 songs aside, and it'll be played on 45, so you can get the best quality.
Wow. And is there anything else you can tell me about the record, album title, song title, lyrics, theme, anything?
Um, I can't say song title because as soon as I say that, then somebody's already bootlegged it and somebody's
Oh.
ordered it, and it's not even. And they don't even have the record. It's too many scams going on and stuff like that. But I guess I gotta say, lyrically, I think for all of us, it's totally relevant. Everything that we've always sung about was what we're going through at the moment. We're older now. Me being 71, I'm not crying about, oh, my mom left me and I feel so bad anymore. I mean, it's like, am I going to sing songs about overcoming or at least dealing with things rather than go, woe is me? I just feel I have an obligation to not drag people down with my drama. They make great songs. I was playing Dogman yesterday. I literally put it on to listen to and just go, okay, I took a shot of some whiskey and smoked a joint and said, Douglas, just listen to it and try to enjoy this. And when I played it, that's what I was thinking. I'm going, oh my God, I can't believe what we were going through and the things I was singing about. I don't care like I used to, and religion and relationships and divorces and all this stuff. And it was a dark record, just one day, just 1 second, feel no pain, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I could never write those kind of things again because I don't feel that way anymore. But I still want to relate. And hopefully, what I sing about is like grandpa, come by and hang out with grandpa and he'll tell you some stories about the old days and maybe you'll learn something. That's my attitude now, I have a line in this song, I'm never going to give it up until the lights go out. What's my biggest fear? I might not know what's over there. I'm going to stick around until they put me under. I am is all I know. Write it out until it's over.
Wow. That's
It's a
deep.
verse, and yeah, because I look around and go, hey, at my age, everybody's dying. And people die in their 70s.
Yeah.
Most people, so it's either statistically I've got a few more years to live, which is bullshit, or in my family they can get to 100. I have an aunt who's 103. She'll be 104 in about 8 months, and she's doing fine. She's not sick. She walks around with a walker so she doesn't fall. Other than that, she lives alone. She takes care of herself. She cooks. She's fine. And, so I got good genes. So I believe I plan to be here till I'm at least 100. I really want to have that 100th birthday, and I'm going to have the biggest party in the world. It's going to be fun, I hope. If it doesn't happen, that's the way it is. But that's why I'm looking at it now. It's like, don't give up. You still got life to live as long as you're breathing, and there's always a new adventure. There's always a new mountain to climb, and there's always people around to help you get up that mountain when you ain't got the energy.
Mm-hmm.
Because as I get older, I find I'm wearing out a little bit more, and everything's not working like it used to. Even though everything's fine, it's just I'm slowing down, and and I'm going thinking about things. So. It's a different world. Every 10 years we enter in a new. It seems like we enter into a new era. Hopefully I'll get to 80 and see. I could look back at my 70s and go, "You were an idiot."
Is that how you feel looking back at your younger years? That like how the mistakes you made?
I look back and not as a negative thing. I look back at saying it just keeps me humble. It's like when I think I got it all figured out, another 10 years goes by and I look back and go, oh, no, you didn't. You got some good points out of there, but you were still off and you got some more stuff to learn. And that's what happens. Even in the last few days, I've had some realizations, of some of my idiosyncrasies and how they might hurt someone's feelings when I speak to them that way, when I think we're just having fun. I'm trying to learn to find out a friendship, and to have honesty where someone can tell me if I've hurt their feelings by something I've done that I didn't realize was affected them in a way that caused them to to feel any sadness or pain or rejection. It's like I really, really want to be um, a lover of everyone so that they can be themselves around me. I think that's very important.
No, absolutely. Well, you mentioned that the Dogman album and the emotions, and that was an interesting time for music in the '90s and '94. But I got to ask you about this because I don't think I've ever heard you talk about this. You did in 1994. You did that tour with Motley Crue, and that was when they had John Corabi, and I had him on the show, and I'm just such a fan of that era. But do you have any memories of that tour? I mean, that's kind of a, in a way, it's kind of a.
It's not a blur. I have so many memories of that tour. It's crazy.
Really?
The night we're on the tour bus, and all of a sudden it sounded like a nuclear explosion happened outside. The buses were shaking. It was insane. And everybody got off the tour buses. And it was Tommy Lee had bought $1,000 worth of firecrackers and lit them in the parking lot. And standing there and watching it, jumping up and down, going, I can't believe I did it. It was so loud. I don't know. He didn't have his earplugs. It was like, are you kidding? Let me think. One time we were on tour playing Moan Jam, and Tommy runs on stage and grabs my mic and starts yelling at the audience, going, do you guys realize how great this band is? I love this band. God, he was just screaming and hollering on my mic while we're playing the song in front of the crowd, how he loved us. It was like, are you kidding? Tommy was a kid. Yeah, he was so much fun. But there are lots and lots of stories that that I could tell for sure. I usually talk to Mick Mars at least once a week, if not every other day. We text each other. So we're all still friends, and I'll run into Nikki Sixx every now and then, and even Tommy. One time I remember running into him at that concert that Tom Morello did with those rappers. What was that? Prophets of Rage. I remember I went to see, and I was out in the smoking area, smoking a joint, and Tommy walks out and says, "Doug," and I gave him a hug. Hadn't seen him in so long, and it was just so cool chatting with him for a second.
That's really cool. It's just it's so sad because I love that album and I loved that era of Crew. And I remember Nikki saying that the first show you guys, I don't know if you were on the Tucson show, the first show they did, it was just so disappointed at the turnouts and stuff, but you guys still had fun and put on good shows regardless of like maybe some bad audiences.
Yeah, it was sad because, the sad thing about it is the great thing about it is they booked a Motley Crue tour like they would always do, the big arenas, all the trailers, trucks, and the whole big production. In the first 3 shows through Texas, maybe 3,000 people showed up to a 15,000 seater. So it had to be shut. They had to scale it down, and I'd run into guys going, "Hey, see you tomorrow," and they go, "No, I might not be here tomorrow." People are going home, and every other show it was scaling down till we ended up doing sheds, outdoor sheds, and they were smaller, and you could be on the grass and stuff like that. So that's what it ended up. But I remember the first night we played with them, and I remember we did a manic depression, and I spun around and my bass hit the microphone, and it broke. Which it's hard to break a neck, but it broke. And so I went, well, it broke it. I guess I'll just smash it. So I smashed it and gave it to a kid down front, And I remember getting off stage, and Nikki runs out of his dressing room, never met him before. And he says, dude, I love your band, but do you do that every night? I go, what? He goes, do you break a bass every night? I'm going, no. He goes, oh, good. I'm so glad because I got nowhere to go after that. And he gave me a hug and ran back to his room and closed the door.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Was that the most... Sorry, go on.
No. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, what other tours stand out to you? Because you guys did toured with AC/DC. You did shows with Dream Theater, Pearl Jam.
AC/DC took us to dinner one time. They came to get us in we were playing Hamburg, but we were staying about 50 or 60 miles away in some little town. I think the hotels were cheaper and we had the day off. And they wanted to take us to dinner. So they sent a driver to pick us up. And we got on the Autobahn, and they drove 30 miles an hour all the way. And I remember Ty and Jerry were scared to death, and I was just going, "This is so cool." I mean, we were flying. And I remember we got to the restaurant. We're sitting down, and Angus was sitting left to me, and Brian was sitting to the right of me. Then there was Jerry, and Malcolm, I think, was on the other side, and Ty. And Brian loves to tell jokes, and he has a very thick Scottish accent, and you can't understand what he's saying when he speaks. And you really can't. He's like, "Oh, the make the hay, the dicks and the boys and the work and the ropes and the," and we're going, "What's he saying?" So he's telling all these jokes, and everybody's just laughing, and I'm sitting there going, "I don't know what he's saying." So I look at Malcolm, and I go, "Malcolm, I don't understand what he's saying." And Malcolm looks up at me and says, "We don't either. Just laugh."
Oh, God.
And I remember one night they had to do a sound check, and Malcolm and my brain went blank. The two brothers, the brothers. I don't know why.
Malcolm and Angus?
Yeah, Malcolm and Angus. Thank you. I'm old, Alzheimer's. But Malcolm and Angus, they had to go do some kind of thing at a TV show or some kind of thing, so they couldn't do a sound check. So Brian came to our dressing room and says, "Hey, you want to play bass?" And Jerry, I think, yeah, and Jerry played drums. And we got up and played. Now, who played drums? I can't remember, but two of us, me and Jerry, played with the members of AC/DC to do a sound check, and Brian said that's never happened before, which is so much fun.
Wow.
Just a little sound check. We played a Little Richard song. And I remember playing through bass player's rig and how different it sounded because, his tone was different. Another thing, too, is what's the bass player's name? See, I'm spacing out now. Simon? No.
Simon Wright?
Oh. Is that the bass player, right?
I think they had a couple, didn't they? I think he was.
No, he's always been the same bass player.
Has it always been the same? I'm so bad at this.
Yeah, me too, because I could tell you any other time, but now that I'm under pressure, I can't think. But anyway, he asked me to go to a bass store with him in London one time. And so I went along.
Wait, was it Cliff Williams?
Cliff, yeah.
Okay.
And we went to the bass this bass store, and we're checking out basses. And he pulls out this bass to check out, and he starts doing some Jaco Pastorius stuff and Stanley Clarke stuff, like, and he starts playing this jazzy stuff. And I go, "Dude, I didn't know you could play like that." He goes, "Yeah, but he says they won't let me play that with AC/DC, so I just stick to the root." And I says, "Well, I'm going to tell everybody, if I have, when your name comes up," and he goes, "Thanks," because nobody knows he's such an amazing bass player. Yeah. People just think he's a simple bass player, but his bass playing, even with AC/DC, the nuance and the subtle movements that he does with that band makes it. You can't, if you study bass with AC/DC, you better know your stuff, because he's not just a 16th noter. Every song had a different nuance and vibe, even though it was almost the same thing. Because that was the thing about AC/DC is when you walk away, it's the same thing, but when you get close to it, you go, "Oh wow." Everything was subtly different from the next thing. Even how they played, when Malcolm would play the high G or the high E, and Angus would play the low E. But when they played them together, there was this full tone, and a lot of people don't realize that. So when they play AC/DC, they're playing just what they think is a whole full chord. When the two brothers are switching off with notes and everything at the same time, which made it so unique. So, anyway, I didn't mean to go off on AC/DC.
No, that's so cool. That was amazing. That was a great story. You've collaborated. That's cool that you got to play with them, and you had all these awesome. We don't have enough time to go through all your cool side projects like KXM and all these other things that you're doing. Is there anyone that you have not collaborated with that you want to? Because I know you're friends with Jerry Cantrell. That would be cool. I'd love to hear you two together. Maybe with Dave Lombardo on drums. I don't know. Just throwing that out there.
Me and Jerry Cantrell and Stephen Perkins threw it up for a moment, and I'm going to pursue it one of these days. But I've got so much going on now that it's it's hard, to do that. Actually, I just did a virtual reality song that it's a new format that's coming out with Stuart Copeland and Brian Hargrove, who played bass with Public Enemy, who plays guitar also, and they asked me to sing on it. And so we don't have a name, but it's a video and a single. You know, it's a song. So we don't know what's going to come of that, but that's like another group I'm in, kind of.
Wow. So it's Stuart
We don't
Copeland
have a
from the
name.
Police and
Yeah.
Brian. What'd you say? Hargrove? Is that his name?
Brian Hargrove from Public Enemy.
And just you, just the three of you? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. And the song's it's a virtual reality song, or?
Yeah, it's a song. It's a regular pop song, but we did a virtual reality video of it, where, you know, when you put your headphones on, you can walk into the room and I can stand there and sing to you, and I look like a hologram.
Wow.
It's a new kind of format that's starting to develop, and so we decided to jump on it, you know, really just for fun. You know,
That sounds amazing. I can't wait to see
it's
that.
sort of like when MTV came around. Nobody could describe MTV, but Video Killed the Radio Star. Somebody made that video before they even thought there was an MTV. So, you know, we're thinking, you know, if AI is the new thing, and, you know, everything is changing, even cell phones will be obsolete, they said, in the next 30 years, because of all the AI technology that's happening. So we just met some people that are on the cutting edge of it. And so we just kind of, hey, what do you want us to do? Let's check it out and maybe be a part of it and see what happens.
So do you think that's a good thing, though? Because it sounds like you're talking about like the metaverse. Is that what this is going to be in?
Yeah. There's been an argument over it can be the worst thing or the best thing in the world. What are you going to do? As one person, I can't stop progress and I can't stop digress, you know, and it's quite obvious that no matter what is introduced into this world for good, we're going to abuse it to the point where it's either banned or we find something else that is the greatest thing in the world to be used to destroy more. You know, it's just a circle that keeps going and going. So I do, you know, learn to ride the wave best you can. You know?
Well, yeah, because I think I heard you say that you think social media has made us more disconnected and, you know, back into our tribes. And so I'm thinking the metaverse will make us even more disconnected and more out of touch with reality. It'll be an alternate. I mean, it's like that movie with, I don't know if you saw the one with Bruce Willis, Surrogates, where he spends his whole life on a computer and there's a surrogate that goes out into the real world and he's really good looking and everything. And I wonder if that's the future.
I guarantee you that will happen. I do believe it. I mean, anything that you can imagine, if that thought has crossed your mind, there is somebody who's already figuring out how to do it. And that's a quote from Jerry Gaskell. And it's scary. He even said there's a community that will embrace you. So, you know, I'm not surprised at anything anymore. And I've always been one to look to the future for everything. Back in the 50s, when my cousins used to fix their cars and they would get Hot Rod magazine. This is the 50s, where I'd sit there as a little kid and look at these pictures of these, you know, 55 Chevy and stuff like that. Then they go at the end of the magazine, they'd have drawings of cars of the future, 1980, 2000. And they were drawing pictures of cars like that. And I realized right now, I'll go out the door and look, and those are the cars that I was looking at when I was a child 60 years ago or more. And so it's just progress just keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. And you can't stop it. It's the Adamic nature of man. We are as good as we are evil. And that is who we are. The internet has split us up. It's brought us together also. You know, even in the Bible, when it says the Antichrist will be killed and he will come to life and the whole world will see it. That's in the Bible. And I used to sit there and go, now, how's that going to happen? This is 1960. We barely got TVs. You know, now look around. There can come a time when the world will have some way to see what's going on in real time. We've almost got, 80% of the world can see something going on in real time right now. So there it is. So many things that people predicted the future, I'm seeing it happening right now. And so I'm just holding on because there's more stuff happening, you know, more stuff to come.
Do you ever just think, because there's a part of me that's like, I love technology. I think it's cool, but there's a part of me that goes, God, sometimes I just want to go live off the grid and get away from all this stuff and not be so, because you're right. I think in some ways the technology has made us closer, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to do this interview with you right now. But in other ways, it's made us so divided. And I feel like the metaverse has taken that to another level where it's going to be interesting to see, is there going to be any reality? Are people ever going to leave their house to do anything?
Um, well, in certain places, nobody's going to go anywhere. But then there's going to be those big communities where people have turned off their cell phones and they all live off the land. It's happening right now. I mean, go to Idaho, I guess, is or Montana, somewhere up there. There's like all these Trumpers that are moving up there, and they're, living off the land and living the way, what they believe and what they feel, away from all this, and they're separating themselves. I watched a documentary on it, and it's like people are leaving, in groves because they're not happy with politics or whatever. And so it's scary. It's splitting up. I'm not saying whose side I'm on at all. I want to know what is really going on, because I think everybody's bullshit and everybody's lying to us. And there's an underlying reason for everything that's going on. And if you follow the money, you find out that it's all about money and nothing other than money and control. Of those, just suck us dry. And that's the way it appears to me. So I listen to everything that I hear with a grain of salt and stand back and watch and just try to, I'll mask up. You can argue with me whether I should or not. I'm going to, and that's just the way it is. And I don't care. You can walk around without one or not. I don't care. It's my choice, and don't argue with me about it. And that's how I look at it. It's like, I look at it all that way. It's like, we all have our own realities right now from the algorithms, and we all have our beliefs, and we have found our community that feels the same way. And we're continually separating more and more and more. I find that there's things that I just don't say to a lot of my friends, because I know that it'll turn into a horrible argument, because it seems like the sides that people are taking, it's becoming personal. And I look at politics as just politics. Nobody's trying to kill me. Nobody's trying to hurt me. Nobody's trying to take away anything from me. Everybody's serving their own interests. And I may disagree with their interests, but I can't be this victim, like, oh, it's the end of the world and everything's gonna be taken away. If that was gonna happen, well, bottom line is it's already been taken away. And we're just idiots thinking we're hanging on to what's not even there. Losing freedoms. We don't have any freedom. Take away our rights. We don't have any rights. It blows my mind how the media and the powers that be have us fighting over things that don't matter or can't be changed or are bullshit. And nobody, it seems, or very few, seems to see the light through and see that this is all a scam. But who's got an answer? How do we
What do you
fix
mean?
it?
We don't have any freedoms. I mean, we have freedoms. We have choices, don't we? So, I hope.
Not really. I mean, laws are here, but when it comes to like saying something, when you talk, you gotta being politically correct. All these things that all of a sudden people have these beliefs. It's like all of a sudden people are saying you can't say Merry Christmas, and then you find out that people were saying it, and somebody was just complaining. Because of some idiot decides that they want it off the bill or something. And it's like all of a sudden there's this war going on about culture and about what you believe, or like when there's a black man with a white woman in a commercial and they're married and they have a biracial kid. Why is it that 90% of the messages are all hate messages and they'll take the video down? You can't. This is America. We have so many beliefs that we believe that other people don't believe, and everybody wants everybody to accept their beliefs. And I have no problem with that. It's just that it seems that it's the majority of people, it seems like it's impossible because of the bullshit that is that you have to filter out. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think to me it seems like the problem
and
is
as for freedom, like the what is it, the Patriot Act? That's a freedom. They can walk in our house now and take me to jail without telling anybody, and I can just disappear. That was a law when Bush came through because of the Iraq or the
9/11.
9/11. I mean, we can, if you pull up the laws, the law is still on the books that a black and white person cannot get married.
Really?
No. I'm sorry. That was overruled. I'm sorry. What I'm trying to say is, what is it? If you're 10% black, you have to say you are black in your applications. That's still a law, but doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. But what I'm saying is, there's so many laws, and they're making more laws up.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of. I don't like too many rules. You know, I think that I used to work in the schools, and I just felt like there was too many. Even with kids, I felt like we had too many rules and trying to control people. And I don't know. I think the biggest
and
thing, right?
Religion rules too.
Yeah, we'll talk about because
the rules of religion. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, well, that's interesting. Like, you know, your background with you were brought up with religion, and even into your 20s, you guys were still playing kind of in a Christian. It was kind of a Christian band originally, King's X, right? And then it was the major pivotal moment for you was this festival where you went backstage. There was all these Christian bands, and they were all drinking and smoking and doing all these things that they had preached against. And then you thought, okay, well, this doesn't make sense to me. I'm just going to play regular music because
Yeah, that happened before King's X.
Oh, before, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, it was Jerry and I was playing with Phil Keaggy, who was a big Christian artist at the time. Now, Phil Keaggy, to me, is a saint. That man is one of the most perfect people I've ever met, and a true believer who walks the walk that Jesus taught. You know, love your neighbor as yourself, the good stuff. Not a mean bone in his body. But a lot of the other people that we saw just egos and narcissists who were proclaiming Jesus as their savior. And I just got a bad taste in my mouth, and I moved away. But that wasn't the only thing in the Christian world. There was just so much going on that I just couldn't go along with after a while, and I couldn't get answers. And the answers that I did get just caused more questions. And sooner or later, I always tell people there was more reasonable doubt than truth in my heart in the faith that I had grown up in. So I just kind of slowly faded out of it.
Yeah. When you said something interesting to me that struck me, because I grew up, I had to go to church, and I remember going to like Christian Bible camps and stuff. But you said something about how you never really felt this like spiritual thing, like you didn't feel, and that's kind of how I felt. I was like, I would go to church and I would try to understand it, and but I just never felt like this magic or whatever it was, the spirituality. I never felt that really going to church and stuff. And that's just, I can't lie about it.
I remember. Okay.
What?
I lost you.
I lost you.
You can't lie about it. What?
No, I was just, you said no, go on. You were just saying that you can't. I was just saying, I can't. That's just how I feel. And so, and I understand the people that feel that way about Christianity or spirit or religion or whatever. I'm like, that's awesome for you. But yeah, for me, and it sounded like you felt the same way, that you were trying to follow the rules and embrace this religion, but you never really felt it from within.
Right. And I always felt like there was something wrong with me too. And even to this day, there are Christians who will say to me, well, you never believed in the first place, or the devil has deceived you. It's always, we're right and you're wrong. And you're going to have to meet God and stand before judgment. And I'm going, I can't live with this being thrown at me for the rest of my life. I just walked away from it because I just don't believe in it anymore. I was going to say something. I remember one time there was a time when you have to be baptized in the Holy Spirit, where you go and you pray and you're supposed to speak in tongues and all this great stuff happens. So we had a meeting, and there was a whole bunch of us, and we were all wanting to get filled with the Spirit. And I remember every time they went to a person, they laid their hands on them, and everybody starts praying, and they start praying in tongues, and all of a sudden this person starts speaking this language and blah, 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 and stuff, and everybody's crying, and I'm just enjoying it, just watching, believing it all, going, oh, he's got the Holy Spirit. They came to me and they says, just let your tongue loose, and I'm going, I wasn't feeling anything. I didn't get it. And so my pastor says to me, just make something up. Just make something up. And I went, and all of a sudden it goes, praise God, he's got the Spirit. And at that point I thought, this is not right. This is wrong. I never said a word.
Yeah.
And I stayed. And I stayed. as a Christian for many, many years after that. But I had many of those experiences, being told that if you're gay, it's an abomination, that God hates that more than anything else other than blaspheming the Holy Spirit, according to the Bible. A man shall not lay down with another man. It is an abomination. So I'm told that all my life, and I'm gay. So I wouldn't tell anybody. One time I decided, well, I'm going to do like Jesus did. I'm going to go fast for 3 days and ask God to change me. And I went and sat in a trailer out in the country and fasted and didn't eat and just drank water for 2 days. And I prayed and prayed and cried and begged God to change me. And I didn't feel a thing. And I stopped and I went, I'll give up. And all I could think of in the back of my mind is the scriptures that people say, don't give up on God, and God's not done with you, and God, you have to wait on God, and you can't get things in God's timing. So anything that I would do that didn't work was my fault. See, religion for me was nothing but oppressive. Nothing but oppressive. I mean, they wouldn't let me do anything. I remember sitting in church with my great grandmother at 4 or 5 years old in the front row, hearing the pastor screaming and yelling about if you dance, you drink, you smoke cigarettes, you're going to hell, the demons are going to get you. I went to bed every night scared to death, as a child, thinking that the devil was going to come and bother me. I used to have nightmares all the time, wake up screaming. For me, religion was abusive, and other people, it's not like that. And I'm fine with that, but for me, it is. And when someone comes to tell me that, oh, but God loves you and he died for your sins, in my mind, I just want to go fuck yourself. But instead, I just have to be like I want everybody else to be, accept a person for who they are and what they believe, and love them, because it doesn't matter. Love covers a multitude of sin. Even the Bible says that. Well, somebody said that it came from the Bible. I'm not sure, so don't quote me.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? It's
I think
all that doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think, I mean, for some people, it works so well. I have a friend he's a preacher. I've had him on the show, and nicest guy. And I think for me, it's always trying to understand the other person. I think where I get weary is whether it's religion or government or whatever, when people are trying to convince you to believe and think what they think and what they believe, that's the right way, rather than, okay, we think something different. Well, let me try to understand where you're coming from. I want, you tell me what you're about and what you think. And that's what I'm more interested in. That's why I do the podcast, because I want to hear other people's opinions that are different than me. And so I think if there was more of that in the world, I think we'd be a lot more connected instead of divided. And differences, like let's embrace those, rather than, hey, you should, vote for this president, or you should have this religion, or we should say, well, let me understand why you think this way. I'm curious.
Yeah, I have several very good Christian friends who I've known for decades, who know how I feel about things, and their belief is their belief, and they accept me, love me. We never get into arguments. We never get into debates. There's never any awkwardness even, they just, I'll say fuck or something and nobody reacts, and I know that that's not something they would say ever. But there's nobody going, oh man, don't say that word around me, it offends me or something, nobody ever does that. And that's what I love about it. My Christian friends who let me be me. Even,
love it.
And I know exactly, I know, not exactly, but I know when I lived in that world, what their core beliefs are, and I accept that, because they love me, and that's all that matters.
And that's being a true Christian, isn't it? Because I mean, that's what I learned Jesus. I mean, he had the lepers and the prostitutes and all these people. He accepted everybody, and he said, "Come to me, and let me." These people are outcasts of society, but he was like, "I love everybody. Come to me," and that's where that's why they all gravitated towards him.
I believe there are many, 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 many true believers who I admire and applaud, but I do believe that there's many, 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 many who are just evil people who are only out for their own personal gain, evil narcissist people who are using religion for, when a guy says, God, give me your money because God wants me to have an airplane. It's like,
Yeah,
or
I know.
you got Pat Robertson or what's his name? Not Pat Robertson. What's
Jimmy
the other guy?
Swaggart.
Yeah, and all those people asking for your money, they're just bullshit. They're just liars. They're a bunch of narcissists who have found a way to bleed people dry. I have such a disgust for them, and I have a sadness for people who believed it and still believe it. I have a sadness for them, not a distaste. I have a sadness, and I have to stay away because I'm that type of person they will not accept. And it's sad to me, but that's
Mm-hmm.
life.
Yeah, no, it is really sad. And, but I'm glad that, I mean, you're 71 years old and you've come into being who you are and you're happy with who you are. It sounds like you're a lot more content and happy at this age than you were, say, 30, 40 years ago.
Oh, I did. I watched this video. It talked about every 10 years the change that you go through, and it had a graph, and it
Hmm.
showed that when you get to your 70s, that's when everything from that point on is great. It's really weird. The
Hmm.
70s are your best years, and they said, and
Interesting.
they said it said they only get better. They said they showed the graph, and the peak was around between 40 and 50. I
Okay.
mean the low peak,
Oh, the low peak.
and yeah, the low peak, and that's where
That's where I am
midlife
now.
crisis
Shit.
happened. Right, midlife crisis.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
that's me.
we all go through it. I was there. You just, it's, but then all of a sudden you start climbing, and according to them, by the time you get to 70, it's smooth sailing. And literally, I would say the day I turned 70, there was a epiphany in my life that changed. It was like, dude, you've been here for 70 years. It came that quick. Okay, look back. Stop crying. Look back. You can't change nothing. Look back. You only can go forward. So let's do this, and that's what happened to me. It's like, it's time to party, have fun, stop crying over all the bullshit that happened, the people that hurt you, not being famous enough, or people that have narcissist friends who have used and abused me or whatever, and just on down the line, and even getting older, I look back and go, okay, you're old now. You got wrinkles, you got gray hair. What do you got to lose? Nothing. What do you want to do? I've really done everything I've ever wanted to do. I just want to have a good time, so, and make music and do what I love to do. And I literally am able to do that now.
That's
And there's
amazing.
I tell people when they say, how you doing? I go, slap me if I have any complaints, literally slap me, because anything that happens in my life now is a piece of cake. It's just, oh,
Wow.
that happened. Okay. I'm
So
over it,
there's no fear when you get older because there's not fear of dying or fear of, health problems or any of those the fear goes away.
I went through a couple months, maybe not even that long, of this fear of dying. It just dawned on me. I even had a little anxiety attack one morning, and it freaked me out. And then I stopped, and for me, because I'm a really highly emotional person, and my emotions just explode, and then I got to reel them in logically. And I had laid there in my bed and just said, dude, I said, you're not going to wake up every morning having panic attacks thinking you're going to die for the rest of your life. I said, think about it. Everybody dies. Everybody. Think about all the people that are older than you that are sitting there, the 90-year-old, the 100-year-old that's going to sleep, and they have to wake up the next day. Are they going through panic attacks? No. Just stop spooking yourself. And it went away and it never came back. Um,
Hmm.
and also, because I always say, what's my biggest fear? I might not know what's over there. I wrote that lyric before I turned 70. Now I say, I'm not afraid. I might not like what's over there, but I'm not afraid,
You mean
because
after you die on the other side?
right,
Yeah.
right, because fear is the culprit. I can't live in fear. Living in fear is living in hell. And if I have to live in fear, and then what could be worse? So that's
Hmm.
my logic for me. I am not afraid at all. A lot of times I think about what'll happen after I die. I mean, will the music that I make matter to anybody? I think about the memorial. I'm going, will anybody show up? Or I can't imagine the stories that people are going to tell, because I got a lot of good friends, and there's a lot of embarrassing stories that they can be told. Um, so I think about that kind of stuff. I got to make a will yet, and I haven't done that. I've been stalling on that, just to make sure that whatever is comes into, you know, uh, whatever it is that I've done, somebody in my family will benefit from it. But other than that, nah. And I do believe I'm going to keep going. Here's the other thing too, though, is I took a physical, about 3 months ago now. I did a blood test. Um, and usually I do the blood test and it doesn't make any sense to me. I barely read it, and I take it to the doctor, and the doctor says, "Oh, you got high blood pressure. You should take these pills or something, or something like that." This time I got it in the mail. So I went down the list of all the blood work, went online and looked up words to find out everything that was wrong with me. And what I found out was my prostate is slightly elevated, which is way less than any man 70 years old. So I get up to pee maybe 2 or 3 times a night when anybody else doesn't have to. I have a slight high blood pressure. It's not like a problem, but the doctor wanted me to be on a light heart medication just to make sure. So I take a blood pressure pill every morning. Other than that, there's nothing wrong with me.
Sounds good.
Nothing. My blood work was perfect. It was right down the middle. My cholesterol levels, everything. I mean, not even close to the red. Everything was in the green, like insane. And at that point, I'm going, I'm not going to cry about anything. When I'm working out and my chest hurts, and I go, "Oh, that's because I've been doing too many push-ups. It ain't because I'm having a heart attack. Ain't nothing wrong with my heart."
Yeah. Right.
It's such a freedom. And the other thing too is I really feel lucky, uh, uh, um, um, uh, in so many ways, that I'm lucky enough to be able to be this healthy at my age, because I don't know anybody else at my age this healthy,
Really?
at all. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because musicians, I would think a lot of musicians die young. They live, crazy, wild lives.
What I mean is, when you get into your 60s and 70s, the diabetes, the insulin problems, just all those little normal things that everybody seems to be getting now. High cholesterol, the heart attacks, or so many of my friends in my age have had a heart attack now, or whatever, or colon cancer, or cancer on their face or on a lip or something. It's like just all these things are happening to people my age, and it's not happening to me. So that's what I'm saying is I'm excited about that.
That's awesome. Well, because I mean, that's what I try to live my life, is just
not
gratitude.
That they're like that.
No. But like for you, that you can only control yourself, and so just rather than the fear, it should be gratitude, because you've made it this far and you're doing well, and you've had such an amazing career, and I continue to enjoy your music. I look forward to the new King's X. You've got a new solo record out now. What else can we promote for you?
Well, New Grinder Blues. It's been out for a couple months.
That's good. I listened to that one too. That was fun.
Cool.
I love that. Are you guys going to do any live shows?
We got some shows out here in LA, 2 shows in California and 1 in Vegas, and that's it. The COVID thing is so crazy. It's hard to do anything.
Vegas. See, I'm in Phoenix, so I could drive to one of those. Like Vegas might make a little more sense, but yeah, I'd love to see. I've never seen you guys live. I've never even seen King's X.
Oh man, you gotta see both of us.
Yes, I want to see all of it. So yeah, well, I'll check that out, and I'll put your website in the show notes so people can follow. And when do we have a date for the new record, the new King's X?
No, not yet. No, we're still people, our fans are just so over us because they're just so tired. But if for some reason this record has just taken a long time to put together, to put out, the record's done. But we're still finalizing cover and the mastering of the vinyl, and and the wait for the beat to be pressed, because everything's behind schedule, and then you want to tour, you want to do shows, but the COVID thing, we don't know what's going on, so everything's up in the air, and we don't want to just put a record out in the middle of all this and not be able to really give it the proper attention that it needs. So we're trying real hard to juggle what should be done, what shouldn't be done. I just sit back and let the powers that be in our camp do what they think is right.
Okay.
I need to let them do that because they know what they're doing.
Sure. Okay, we'll look for that. And then I always end with a charity. Is there a charity that you want to give a shout out to here, or something that's near and dear to your heart?
Sadly enough, well, yeah. I mean, Compassion International. I support the kids. There's a couple kids on that, and it's $21 a month, and 21 bucks a month in like El Salvador for a kid who goes to school. I mean, that's a good, that's meals for him. He can even buy a chicken for his family, So it's called Compassion International.
Okay.
They're a Christian organization. A real good friend of mine used to work for it, and he got me into them. And this is like maybe 35, 40 years ago now. I've been doing this ever since. I'm not a Christian and I don't go along with all the beliefs, but at the end of the day, people need to get fed, and they're doing a great thing. And at the end of the day, everybody makes it, if they, God is good. That's all.
No, yeah. And well, it's like I heard you say before, I mean, as much problems as you've had with religion and problems that you see, there are some good people doing things too. And this sounds like a great thing. So I'll put that in the notes as well. Thank you so much, Doug. This has been a blast. Love talking with you.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thanks.
I'll see you later.
Until next time.
All right. Bye-bye. Such a fun interview. Lots of great stories and insight from Doug Pinnick. It's so fun because he's such an open book and he doesn't hold back. And even if you don't agree with him, you can't say he's not being genuine. And as an interviewer, I always appreciate that. So make sure to check out his new solo record as well as Grinder Blues. I love that stuff. And KXM is great. And of course, King's X, who will have a new record out at some point. Make sure to follow Doug and King's X on social media. And you can follow me too. And you can keep up with updates from both of us. I've got a new Instagram and a TikTok that will be solely used for clips from the show. So you can get a sample of every episode that's coming up and see if you like it. And if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to check out some of the other interviews I've done and make sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any future episodes. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great rest of your day and remember to shoot for the moon.